how the pandemic changed animal behavior, bold bears to cautious pumas, wildlife COVID-19 study. Imagine a world where black bears roam freely in areas once bustling with human activity, while pumas retreat further into the shadows. This is the story of how the pandemic's Anthropause, the sudden global slowdown of human activity, dramatically changed the behavior of wildlife in our national parks. As the world came to a halt, so did the footsteps of millions of tourists and hikers. Suddenly, the national parks that had been teeming with human activity were eerily quiet, leaving wildlife to reclaim their territories. Scientists, seizing this unprecedented opportunity, tracked the movements of animals in 14 national parks across the U.S., using GPS collars on 229 animals from 10 different species. Their findings, published in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society B, offer a fascinating glimpse into the complex relationship between wildlife and humans. But here's where it gets controversial. While most people might assume that animals universally avoid areas with high human activity, this study reveals a more nuanced picture. Some species, like mule deer and moose, actually prefer to be closer to urbanized areas and humans. Why? It turns out that their predators might be avoiding people. So if deer and moose learn to coexist with us, they can reduce the risk of becoming prey. And this is the part most people miss. While many animals initially seem to thrive in the absence of humans, returning to areas they had previously avoided, not all species were so quick to adapt. Some animals, like bighorn sheep and pumas, remained cautious around humans, even during the lockdown. The researchers hypothesized that the relatively short duration of the park closures, an average of 58 days, may not have given many animals enough time to adjust their behavior. So, what does this all mean? This study highlights the importance of preserving areas specifically for wildlife within our national parks. As Yellowstone, Yosemite, and the Grand Canyon continue to attract millions of visitors each year, it's crucial to reserve some spaces exclusively for the animals. By doing so, we can ensure that these magnificent creatures continue to thrive alongside us. Thought-provoking question. What do you think about the idea of balancing human recreation with wildlife conservation? Is it possible to find a harmonious coexistence, or are we inevitably destined to disturb the natural habitats of these animals? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How National Parks Human Activity Shapes Wildlife Behavior, 2025 study. The ongoing presence of humans and their constructed environments within U.S. national parks has led to significant alterations in the behaviors of the large wildlife inhabiting these areas, as revealed by a recent study. Even during the lockdowns imposed during the pandemic in 2020, which temporarily restricted human access to parks, large animals in most locations continued to steer clear of roads and facilities created by humans. This finding was published on Tuesday in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. However, this trend was not universal. In more developed regions, some animals shifted from avoiding human infrastructure in 2019 to utilizing it more frequently in 2020. Yet, across all parks and species, especially in less populated areas, the tendency to avoid human-made structures largely remained intact. Wildlife globally tends to fear humans and steer clear of areas with high human activity, stated Caitlin Gaynor, the lead author and a zoologist at the University of British Columbia. Gaynor expressed surprise that this behavior was evident even in more secluded, protected regions. To delve into these behavioral patterns, The researchers analyzed GPS collar data from 229 animals spanning 10 different species across 14 national parks and protected areas covering the years 2019 to 2020. This time frame allowed them to assess how animals navigated areas of human activity, both before and during what they termed the COVID Anthropause, a period marked by a significant reduction in human visitors. The species studied included gray wolves, mountain lions, black bears, grizzly bears, moose, mountain goats, and bighorn sheep. Overall, the findings indicated that animals generally avoided infrastructure such as roads, trails, parking lots, buildings, and campgrounds. Although these tendencies varied among different populations, species, and individual animals. For instance, animals in more developed areas showed a greater willingness to explore these environments when humans were absent. In 2020, managers at Yosemite National Park reported that even after the return of visitors post-lockdown, black bears remained in the area, leading to complications. The bears became accustomed to the plentiful food available in Yosemite Valley and were reluctant to leave, Gaynor noted. Despite some populations, like the black bears in Yosemite, demonstrating a strong reaction to the park closures, Gaynor emphasized that most did not. Many headlines in 2020 suggested that animals were reclaiming our national parks and roaming freely, which led us to anticipate a more pronounced effect, Gaynor explained. However, it only takes a few individuals altering their behavior to create the illusion of a broader impact. The researchers also proposed that the relatively brief duration of the pandemic closures, averaging around 58 days, might not have provided sufficient time for many animals to recognize and adapt to changes in human activity. Additionally, they speculated that animals predisposed to avoiding risks may have already been displaced prior to the pandemic, suggesting that those more accustomed to human presence might have been less affected. Co-author Forrest Hayes, a postdoctoral fellow at Colorado State University, highlighted the intricate ways in which animals weigh the risks and benefits associated with human interactions. Gaynor echoed this sentiment, stating that certain species, like bighorn sheep and mountain lions, are inherently more cautious around humans, while others have learned to associate human presence with advantages. For example, mule deer and elk in Zion National Park often linger near humans in developed areas, potentially as a strategy to evade their predators. The authors underscored the diverse reactions of wildlife to human presence, pointing out the conflicting yet coexisting interests of recreational activities and conservation efforts within parks. These varied responses can influence species competition, leading to shifts in ecosystem dynamics and affecting how animals coexist with humans. This study demonstrates that conservation can coexist with recreation at low levels, but it is crucial to maintain certain areas solely for wildlife, Gaynor concluded.